room in right center. If he hits one there, we can dance in the streets. The 2-1. Swung line drive left field. One run is in. Here comes Brady. Here's the front of the plate. He is safe. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win.
That is one of the most iconic moments in Major League Baseball postseason history, and it's one of the most unlikely playoff heroes. Francisco Cabrera sends the Atlanta Braves to the 1992 World Series. Welcome to this week's edition of Crafting the Call. My name is Josh Suchon from the Albuquerque Isotopes, and today we are appreciating Skip Caray.
I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts. I, as a kid, was jumping around my house just like all those fans were jumping around the ballpark because I was so happy that the Braves had won, and with so unlikely a hero as Francisco Cabrera. But Josh and I, when we started to put together Crafting the Call, the idea of it, we actually had said, maybe the two of us, maybe this isn't enough. Maybe we need an extra pair of eyes, an extra pair of ears, another mind to process all of this. And so, Josh, we made a call up to the show. Your boyhood favorite team, the Oakland A's. We're bringing in Chris Caray. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. This is super exciting. It's fun. It's unique. It's different. This is an awesome concept.
So when we thought about doing an episode, originally we thought, all right, let's just do a Caray episode because the broadcasting carries. It's just part of what makes baseball so much fun. But then I made an executive decision, and I told Jesse about this last night. I said, you know what? I just want to focus on Skip because for me, Skip was just always there. I was not a Braves fan, but the Braves were on the Superstation. And so even when the A's were not on TV and the Giants were not on TV, I could always hear the Braves, and I could always hear Skip and Pete Van Wieren and Joe Simpson and everyone else. And I just felt like he was always there. And so I wanted to do an episode where we can just celebrate Skip and just Skip. But first, I want to start by asking you, Chris, how much do you know about your grandfather and sort of this impact that he's had on me and Jesse and the Superstation and all that?
Well, in terms of the impact on you two, I think it varies depending on the person. Skip Caray was a polarizing individual on and off the air. And, when you're following up a man like Harry Caray, who is larger than life, and you have a guy that's more cynical and approaches the game in a different way, people can receive that differently. And as you mentioned, Josh, like with the Superstations, that was a way to consume baseball on the national scale, but only so many teams had that. The Cubs, the Braves, the Yankees at one point. I mean, only little pockets of teams were able to showcase their broadcasters, and Skip Caray was fortunate enough to be one of them. And obviously his name is definitely etched in the history and the fabric of Atlanta Braves broadcasting and until the day he died in 2008.
There's a drive, deep right center field. Nixon goes as far as he can go. He caught the ball. He caught the ball. I can't believe it. What a catch by Otis Nixon. He took a home run away.
Chris, all right, you have the floor. Analyze your grandfather's call.
Well, I think when we're all putting on the headset, we all kind of have to have an idea of tempo, pacing, timing, all of those things, right? So what's happening there is, there's a deep fly ball to right center field. You're trusting your center fielder to go back and track the ball at the very least. So he's watching the outfielder. But there you see Nixon basically propel his left foot off of the wall to add a little bit of length to his jump on top of the wall and then makes the catch. What I notice immediately is the smart move, right? You can't make an assumption that that ball is caught until basically the ball is out of his hand when he throws it, because he didn't identify with his glove, hey, I brought it back. So he took that time to be able to say, hey, he caught the ball, and then reiterates it. You could see in a lot of Skip Caray's calls, just like we talked about, when Sid Bream was safe, he's safe, Braves win, Braves win, Braves win. It was to reiterate and contextualize what just happened, right? So that was a stylistic preference that Skip Caray did. Harry Caray did that as well. I mean, the iconic Cubs win, Cubs win, Cubs win, right? So he took a little bit of that and drew that inspiration from Harry, and then brought it to the Braves, even in play, when the ball was in play. So I think that was something a little bit different, and I've seen a lot of people do it since.
I enjoy the repetition. I enjoy that, making sure that it's clear for the listener. I have never heard a broadcaster, before the ball is caught, say that an outfielder goes as far as he can go. And this is such a great lead up to the moment, because Otis Nixon really does go as far as he can go.
I'm going to have to steal that line, as far as he can go. I like that. And, when Chris was talking about repeating the phrase, I think one of the most iconic calls is the Giants won the pennant. The Giants won the pennant. And I'm wondering, because back then we didn't have the internet to give us all of these calls, but that was one that happened to be saved and has become this iconic call. And I can't help but wonder how much Harry, Skip, so many other broadcasters, that was ingrained into their brain. And so whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously, it's the repeating of the phrase, Braves win, or he caught it, which I think is a very effective tool. As long as you don't use it too often, I think you really have to save that for really key, huge moments.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Josh hits on a good point. You too, Jesse. What I notice most of the time, especially in those big plays, it's almost as if they throw the traditional play-by-play aside, and they are just basically audibly blurting out what a fan would be thinking. Oh my goodness, the Braves win, they've won, wow. Like any fan would be capable of articulating that right after that point in time, because you throw the analysis out of the window for a second, and you almost become this joyous personality for what you just experienced. Because there are some things that in the game of baseball, I believe nothing is impossible, but a lot is improbable, like that catch or that hit that brought home Sid Bream. I mean, those are all things that you're not prepared for. So sometimes the most genuine moments are not ones that you think ahead for. They just naturally happen in the moment, and then you respond in kind, however, and that's a lot of what Skip Caray did, and Harry, of course. And I think, like you said, Josh, we all kind of still do it to this day, but it's only good in moderation.
I want to leapfrog off of that, Chris, because I don't think a lot of broadcasters personalize well. I'm going to connect Skip to Jack Buck. Buck's with, I don't believe what I just saw. This, Skip says, I don't believe it. And it works. The difference between a fan in this moment is a fan is incoherent. A broadcaster is clear, right? A fan is just saying sounds. You have no idea what's coming out of your mouth. And yet, coherently, he caught it, right? And I don't believe it in that moment. To personalize it, I think really elevates this call. There's no part of this call that isn't absolutely crystal clear, and you feel the same kind of incredulity that he is feeling.
All right, let's get to our next call, because this is possibly Jesse's favorite all-time call in baseball.
The Magnificent Seven are warming up in the bullpen and will be with you as soon as Leonard hits into a 6-4-3. 6, 4.
Oh, that is so awesome. And one of the things that I love about that, Jesse and I actually talked about this in a previous episode where I was about to predict a triple play. And I said, he's going to hit a comebacker to the mound and a 1-2-6-3 triple play. And sure enough, there was a comebacker to the mound. And my adrenaline exploded to the point where I got mad at the catcher because he did not throw to second. He just threw to first for the double play instead of trying the triple play. And the lesson that I learned is exactly what Skip did. If you're going to predict something and it happens, just be very smug and matter of fact and just like, of course, 6, 4, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I actually had a moment like that on the first game of our homestand. I believe it was against Pittsburgh. Michael Kelly comes into the game in a tough situation. And I said, Michael's going to try and get 2 for the price of 1 here. It's a little, soft line drive, short hops the second baseman. It's Schumann to Nick Allen, Allen to first, and it's a game-ending double play. And Dallas is really good at predicting those things, but I just kind of laugh. I just laugh it off because I didn't know what was going to happen. This guy has been known to induce ground balls, but this was just kind of perfect the way that it ended. But you also have to be able to respond when that doesn't happen, because I've been on the receiving end of that a lot more, where it's like, well, I'm not an oracle. I'm a broadcaster, and maybe I'm supposed to be a better oracle. But Dallas has done it multiple times where he said, yeah, Mason Miller, he's going to throw a 102 here to end the game. Strike out, whoever it was. I think it was somebody against Washington. Lo and behold, 102, blows it right past him. It's game over. So he's really good at those things. And I think people like the predictive side. Steve Stone is really good at that as an analyst. Like, he'll be able to tell you when a guy is running even before they think about running, or what pitch is coming. In fact, we were having dinner, my brother and I, with Steve, and he said, there are things that you look for in the game, especially on the defensive side. When you're seeing a runner steal a base, you'll see his hip twitch just a little bit about 5 seconds before he runs. I'm like, okay, that's next level knowledge. He says, when you see a shortstop, they will draw a line where they're normally positioned against a right-handed batter. They'll take 2 steps to their right, and you'll know a curveball is coming against a righty pitcher because they want him to roll over. I've seen that at least 20 times since he has said that. So there are people that really study and observe the game in a way that I think that I still need to work on. I think Skip just got lucky, and he just, that was his personality, is to have that kind of smug sense of confidence. Like, yeah, I knew it all the way. And of course, why wouldn't I? I'm here for a reason. And he was able to make that happen. But I can understand why you like that call a lot, Jesse.
This, to give you the context, Sports Illustrated sent out to its subscribers super duper baseball bloopers. And this was part of this VHS. It was a videotape. And so this was just a segment in it. Look, magical. Voila, I see the future. So that's why you had the sound effect come in at the end. But it's just so dang matter of fact. Leonard's going to hit into a 6-4-3. 6-4-3. All right. There. It's such a chef's kiss moment.
The other thing that I appreciate about it, too, is even the line, the Magnificent Seven are warming up in the bullpen. Yeah. So one of the other things, this might be my biggest just memory of all of the Braves announcers in the 1980s, was making fun of the movies that would show up next after Braves baseball. And I read Ted Turner's biography and how Ted was not happy about this and wanted to let the broadcasters know, hey, I paid big money for that. There's people who like those movies, but it would be like this ongoing gag about which old-time movie was going to follow Braves baseball. But the line, the Magnificent Seven are warming up in the bullpen, I think is just such a clever way of letting you know what is going to happen after Braves baseball. And then to not just predict the double play, but the exact type of double play. To me, it's just such a fabulous moment.
51,000 plus on their feet. Nobody's left to beat the traffic tonight, I guarantee you. Mark gets the sign. The wind and the pitch. Here it is. Swung. Fly ball deep left center. Grissom on the run. Yes! 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 The Atlanta Braves have given you a championship. Listen to this crowd. A mob scene on the field. Rollers get them 1, 2, 3. A couple of fans rushing on the field. And the constables restrain them. The Atlanta Braves have brought the first championship to Atlanta.
I like the word the constables to describe the police or the security instead of police or security. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, I think the involvement of the analysts there was possibly the best part, actually, to tell you the truth. The reason I like it so much is because when you win a game, whether it's a walk-off or a high-stakes game, it's one thing. When you win the World Series for the first time, it's another thing, right? And for the color commentator to stagger his yeses, it's almost like I don't want to say when you're listening to a rap song, but when you're listening to a song that is mixed now and you can hear a loud yes and then a fainter yes, and it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You almost sound like there is a rhythm to it, right? Versus the color commentator not being able to handle himself and saying yes on top of Skip's yeses where it would have been sloppy. So there was that connectivity there where it was not just a Skip Caray call. It was, the duo there making the call. And so, yeah, I'm sure the visceral reaction and the response, I mean, it was from the heart. Yes is a very easy way to go about it. And it's very simple. Remember the audience that you're trying to attract in Atlanta. I know you have the Superstation, but you still have almost the entire Southeast at this point. There are farmers, construction workers, all those things, right? The use of the word constables is great. But one thing my dad always taught me is these individuals in Atlanta are very smart individuals, but they don't speak, like the super king's language, right? They speak in a Southern way. And so, yes is something that everybody can identify with, right? You don't use super strange metaphors or a phraseology or anything like that. You just simplify it for the listener to where it's easy, and you use one word that everybody probably in the country that was rooting for the Braves was thinking in that exact moment. The only other word I could think is finally. If you really consider the way the Braves performed in the 90s, you wonder if they were kicking themselves once 2000 started, how they only got one World Series. I mean, this Braves team was a juggernaut, and for them to squeak one across is great, but I think there were a lot of expectations for that team to have multiple World Series championships in the 90s, and then obviously they had to wait 26 years for their second World Series championship.
I want to piggyback off that. Chris, you, in saying the wild and weird things that can happen at a baseball stadium and talking about the fan who catches the ball in their beer cup, you thinking about the fans, and then you thinking about the people and who is going to celebrate this championship. There's parallel structure of this call of Skip thinking about the people and putting them paramount. The call begins with him talking about the 51,000. And then he uses the words, given you this championship, right? He's talking directly to the people. This championship is yours. And then he says, listen to this crowd. And he peels back. The crowd, the people, the fans of the Braves are so foremost on his mind throughout all of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the explanation and understanding of the geographic disadvantages of Atlanta, one of them being the traffic, saying nobody has left to beat traffic tonight, 51,000. I mean, we could go to 2020 and think about this. When the Dodgers won the World Series, there wasn't hardly anyone there. There just wasn't, right? And it just didn't feel the same. You can't say, hey, this championship is for you, because there weren't people there to witness it. And we know the crowd is as big of a part of the game as even the game being played, right? I mean, especially for a broadcast, whether it's radio, mostly radio, that crowd is your third analyst. And so for them to get rowdy and riled up, you can peel out and let them explain how they're feeling. And I think that he did a fairly good job of explaining himself how they were feeling. But remember, I mean, without these fans, without the people tuning in, without the people, paying their hard-earned money to watch these games, what is the point of a celebration? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just again, another baseball game, whether it's minor league, major league, whatever. Everybody performs better with a crowd, I think. And I think crowds are so important to have. And that's why I'm so glad that baseball is back to full capacity and everybody is able to enjoy the game live and in person. And if not, then you can be able to turn on your television or radio with one click of a button and have access to your favorite broadcast crews, whether it's the Oakland A's or the Atlanta Braves or the Seattle Mariners or Chicago Cubs, whatever you want to do. And then, of course, on the minor league level, too, that's opening up as well. So people have more opportunities than ever to be able to consume all different types of styles of broadcasters. And I think that's awesome.
One of the things that Jesse and I have talked about on crafting the call is knowing who your audience is. And when we looked at Vin Scully's perfect game of Sandy Koufax, it was almost like Vin was talking to Sandy. And definitely with Tom Cheek's call of Joe Carter, when he says, touch 'em all, Joe, right? He was speaking directly to Joe. This is a great example of speaking to the audience, using the word you. You know, they've won you a World Series. And I think the point is not that you always talk to one person. It's just kind of being in the moment and thinking about who is your audience at this moment. And that varies from game to game and moment to moment. And so, I just really like the way that Skip captured the moment here. And I just thought it was just a fantastic call, considering all the things that we've discussed here already.
I totally agree. And that's a great point, Josh, too, because obviously our first job is to entertain and inform and cater to the fans and cater to wherever we are, our region, our fan base, whatever. You know, I went from Amarillo, Texas to Oakland, California, two totally different areas in terms of way of life, way of thinking, all of those things. So the way you present the game is a little different, right? But we also have to kind of cater to the players. I mean, I'm sure you all have had multiple times where a player has come up to you and said, hey, I really like this call, or hey, what was up with this? I've had occasions already where Mason Miller comes up to me and he's like, hey man, that call made me look really good. I said, dude, you pumped 104. How am I making you look really good? Or Lawrence Butler, hey man, you're killing it with the calls. Keep it up. Like, to know that they're listening, right? And to know that they go back on their phones and see what we do, it's a little piece of history for them as well. It's a digital piece of history. It's not something physical that you can feel, but it's something that they can have forever to, once again, capture the moments that they were able to create on a baseball diamond after their career is long over.
We've looked at individual calls, but I go back to what I said at the beginning. Skip was just always there. There was always a Braves game on. And sometimes a game happens and nothing historical happens. It's just a game. It's just a game in the middle of May. And so we're going to go back. I'm going to look at my cheat sheet so I get this right. And we're going to look at May 6th, 1994. The Expos are playing the Braves. And there's some really big names that are going to be part of this clip. But we're just going to look at a somewhat random fifth inning from a game in 1994.
Joe Simpson, Skip Caray with you. We go to the bottom of the fifth. Pretty good pitchers, duo, Joe.
Absolutely, Skip. And Maddox certainly his typical outing for him, I think. But Pedro Martinez leading the league in strikeouts and average against when he came into this ball game with a surprising record of 1-2. But he's showing us tonight why his ERA is good and why his numbers have been good against him, because he is an outstanding fastball tonight.
David Justice leads it off. He flied to right his first time. A long Fred McGriff homer. The offensive highlight of the game, a great catch by Marquise Grissom, the defensive highlight. Let up for a strike to Justice. The Expos have recorded no hits through 5 innings. Ground ball up the middle. That's going to sneak through for a Justice hit. Javi Lopez will hit a strikeout victim his first time. Lopez still leads the team in RBI. McGriff has now moved into second place with 17. Plesko, Pendleton, Sanders all at 15. Good balance.
Martinez did a good job on Lopez first time around, starting with a lot of breaking balls before going to his fastball for the strikeout.
Justice a short lead. Outside, 1 ball, no strikes. I'm sure Don and Pete discussed it. But, Joe, if anybody's going to challenge the Braves in the East, I honestly believe this is the team right here.
I think so, too, even though they got off to a slow start. I think that start was a little deceiving, too, because of their 11 losses this year, 5 have been in their last at-bats. They've been in a bunch of those losses.
And the Philly you just saw, Felipe Alou, mighty good manager. Took him a long time to get a chance. He was managing down at West Palm Beach and A-ball year after year after year. Sort of a guy who was overlooked. Not anymore. Out in front of a curveball. A ball and a strike.
So one thing that immediately comes to mind to me, guys, is this is where I think these types of television broadcasts actually are more common in the minor leagues now than in the major league telecasts, right? Because in the minor leagues, you have to contextualize everything. You don't have a graphic for everything. So he talks about Alou down in A-ball in West Palm Beach. Typically, if there was a shot of a manager nowadays, it would say, hey, it's his second season with the Expos. He's a former World Series champion or manager of the year. That didn't exist back then. So you needed your broadcasters to be able to say, hey, if there's a shot there, let's take a look at him. Here's his background. Here's why it's important why he is here. And in the minor leagues, you see that a lot more. Now, it's not about shot composition because I know most minor league clubs and broadcasters' first responsibility is to the radio. But on a telecast like this, it is cool to see, hey, they don't have as many elements, and they kind of are still using a lot of techniques and elements from the radio side to implement on television. Yes, there's a little bit more dead air, but they're talking more frequently than somebody like I would or your typical TV broadcaster in the major leagues now because there's just so much stuff you need to fill.
I really like just the overall pacing so far of they let it breathe a little bit. Like you said, they've got something to say when the camera shows Felipe Alou, letting people know Maddox has not given up a hit. By the way, yes, Greg Maddux versus Pedro Martinez, 1994. What a matchup here before we knew exactly what Pedro would become. And it just seems like the word that comes to mind is control. He's just in control of the broadcast. He's got something to say, but he's not going to belabor the point. He's reminding you what's happened so far, and I think all of that's just really just top-notch.
If Martinez develops any kind of off-speed pitch, whether it's a straight change or just throwing a slow curve, he's going to be dynamite because you sit on that fastball and you have to be geared for it because it's such a good one.
I just noticed something I don't understand, but I'll ask you about in a moment. The 1-1. Fouled away. What's this guy doing wearing Don Sutton's hair?
One of those idle things.
Exactly the same dude.
If Don had only had his fastball, he might have won 300 games or more.
He'd have probably won 500 if he'd had this guy's fastball to go with everything else he had. A ball and 2 strikes, the count. Right off the end of the bat, a little squib job. It's going to go for a hit. Floyd dove for it, but couldn't come up. There's a break and a good start in the inning.
Nice effort by the first baseman, but this one was really cued right off the end of the bat. And if Floyd doesn't glove it, Lansing's there to make the play, and they at least get one out.
By the way, I really like the technique.
It goes as a hit. Now you have Lemke, Belliard, and the pitcher, the 7, 8, and 9 hitters coming up.
And I'm going to wait until after the
Mark
I just love how
2 of his last 18. Do you punt him to get to Belliard and the pitcher? We will see.
We will see. I like that too. Think about different possible.
The Expos aren't too sure either.
I think I would, because even if they walk Belliard, it sets up a bases loaded 1-out situation where you might squeeze in a run if you wanted to with Maddox.
Let's see how they play it. He's swinging. Base hit right field. Justice will be waved. They challenge one of the best arms in baseball. He is out at the plate. Runners at second and third.
He was safe, Skip.
Your mouth is open, Jesse. Talk to me.
No, he was safe. That was it. He comes in standing. Like, the tag is high. What are we doing here? No, back to the point that you were going to make.
I don't know if I was going to make a point, but what I was going to say is that You got Larry Walker in the throw. Let's actually go back and watch more of this replay.
I think he called him out primarily because he didn't slide. But
Here
David
beats
hit the
Zombie.
plate before the tag was applied, and that's why he was out there arguing with Davidson. A slide, and there's no contest. But I think David probably expected to have to run over Fletcher to get to the plate, and he didn't.
Let's take another look at it.
Lemke jumped on a fastball and yanked it in the hole. Walker's setting himself up. He really didn't expect Justice to be sent home. Throws to the first base side, but see how far Fletcher's got to go. Now watch David's foot and when the tag is applied. Foot's in, then the tag. See, Fletcher's expecting the collision. And there's no question that he got his foot in there first. Fletcher's expecting to be run over, so he was bracing himself, and the foot got down before the tag.
So a break goes in favor of Montreal. Now Rafael Belliard is the batter. They tried to squeeze with him just the other night.
That might have been the worst possible angle for an umpire to take to look at a play at the plate. There was absolutely no sight line to get to the tag. You either have to be behind the catcher, kind of in between where the runner and the catcher are, still in the circle. But there, when you're looking at the catcher's back, which is blocking the sight line of where the foot touches, there's no chance for the runner to be deemed safe. And this is back before challenges. This is back before reversing anything, or replay review, or anything like that. So it's just unfortunate. But how far our game has evolved in just a matter of a few decades is crazy to think about.
A couple of things that I'm noticing here so far. Number one is the quality of the TBS broadcast was so much better than everybody else's in the 80s and 90s. And I think it's because they were the superstation. They devoted the resources to graphics and replays and everything else that other teams did, but maybe did not did quite to their level. The second thing was Skip's use of, they're going to run on one of the best arms in baseball. Just a quick little phrase that lets you know that this does not normally happen. And so I thought that was a really good line there as well. But even like Skip says something, so a break for the Expos. I feel like nowadays, because you can challenge everything, like Chris said, because everything ends up on social media, every bad call becomes this gigantic thing that we make it out to. But in 1994, Skip just said a break for the Expos.
Yeah.
I want to get into the overarching how Skip is calling this inning, because I really enjoy that he's showing you tools in the toolbox. He eases in. This is such an easy start to the half inning, and the language is great, right? The let up sneaks through. So we've got a runner here, a runner there, but he's letting the inning get going, and then he injects some humor. Pedro Martinez has stolen Don Sutton's hair. So now we've got a smile on our faces. We're enjoying this, and we're talking about Pedro, what kind of pitcher he is. He's already given you the brief profile of Felipe Alou, so we're humanizing the guys. Now we're going to have some fun. Now we've got a highlight, and so things have ramped up. And here's, before even the highlight happens, they're discussing strategy. Do you bunt? Then if you bring up Greg Maddux, do you squeeze? So we've gone from relaxed into comedy, into strategy, into highlight reel excitement, and break down the replay. And that, I think, that's 4 different aspects of calling this half inning that I really enjoy how things have gone along.
Well, I think that they're necessary aspects too, Jesse. I mean, we aren't just here to call balls and strikes, right? That's about 2% of what we are supposed to do. We're supposed to entertain. We're supposed to inform, especially, if you're fortunate enough to have a color analyst with you. A lot of broadcasters in the minor leagues have to solo it, which makes it even harder to do. But to be able to be lively on the air is definitely a skill. And Skip had it for sure, but he also had that side to him where he was a little smug and he was a little cynical. So those things all came out in what you call his toolbox. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the review thing that Josh was talking about, because it's not just the big plays anymore that can be reviewed. I mean, if you look at a TV broadcast across the board, Major League Baseball, base hits, replay, side swings, replay, routine ground ball in the hole with a nice throw, replay, strikeout with a pitch tracks, replay. So much of this is replay, and it has truly become a situation where you have to hire a really talented color analyst to fill that air, right? It gets to the point where I'm not going to say every color analyst could do play-by-play, but it gets to the point where you have some people that are at the major league level that are doing color commentary that are super great at improvisation. So they might be able to handle things that the color commentator 20 years ago couldn't because of all of these extra elements coming along. This is pure. You get one look. You get one look at the play at the plate, and it's a decent angle. You're able to tell he's safe. Tough break. Let's move on. Let's keep the game going. Versus, hey, they're challenging, or hey, here's 7 different angles of this. And yes, it's helpful for the viewer now, especially with the short attention span, and they want to see a look again, or they say, hey, there might be a better angle, and they want to come up with a judgment decision on their couch at home. But I like moving it right along. I don't know about you guys, especially in football. There's just so many reviews and penalties and all that stuff that the game itself has been drawn out. And I think it makes the product a little bit harder to consume when you have that many types of replays.
On that note, let's get back to the game.
Funny, you have the same situation with one out that you would have gotten from the bunt.
That's a strange game. I think Walker was shocked that they tried to run on him. He looked for the fastball there and didn't get it. 0-1. He made probably the worst throw I've ever seen him make, a 2-hopper off the plate. A good throw, and there's no question. And I think Jimmy Williams kept the runner going because the lower end of the batting order is coming up.
That's a great point, too. Such a different game. Now that
a base hit here, and all is forgotten. He has all of left field. If he can hit a ball in the air down the left field line, just a routine fly ball that dropped. He chased it.
Whoa.
0-2.
I don't think that pitch got to the front lines of the batter's box.
Especially considering that in that day and age,
look how shallow Grissom
they had small ball type of players at the bottom of the order. They had guys that didn't hit for average but could steal bases and play great defense. Now it's basically 1 through 9. We need 20 home runs from each of you. That's how we're going to construct our lineup.
Part of that story. Right off the end of the bat. It's about like Lopez hit his. But he stays alive, and it's 0-2.
But that's why Pedro Martinez is so tough on these right-handed batters, Skip. If they have to look for the breaking ball or anything off speed, fastball eats them up. They have no time to react.
Infield in, which, if you can make contact, helps the hitter. Anything 4 feet either way gets through. Lined hard, but foul, and the fans battle for the souvenir. But they get no satisfaction as it bounces back onto the field of play.
It's pretty obvious what Belliard's trying to do. He's just trying to protect the plate on an inside-out basis. Fight off anything inside and make sure you got the plate covered in case he throws him another breaking ball, and I'm sure he will see another one.
Is that a pop culture reference?
The 0-2.
Rolling Stones?
Yes.
High fly ball down that left field line. And Lou on the run. That ball is up against the wall. 2-run score. Belliard at second with a double. And again, he just missed a home run.
Great foreshadowing. Before the hit, a few pitches before, if he can hit it down the left field line, that's indeed what he does, but you don't normally do very often against Pedro Martinez. And, just outstanding use of like looking at the field and the ability to kind of think, if he can do this, then this can happen.
Well, it's one of those reasons why my brother and I and my dad, we don't carry an iPad or a laptop or anything. It's just our scorebook, because the game is in front of you. You know, the statistics and all that stuff comes secondary. So when you're looking, I think stylistically, I would say, you know, where the outfielder is playing is a big factor. A lot of room to go and right. You know, I don't necessarily use the if he can go as much, but I do understand where it is there. I want to talk about his pitch, though, because this is something that he started and it has continued with every generation since. He starts high and finishes high, right? And I prefer that style a lot more, because you want to start at a certain point, a high point, and then build, right? High fly ball, deep to left. It's almost like a crescendo type of deal, right? Because you can always go back down. But if you misread it and it's low the entire time, the play, you're not doing the play justice. That's a big play. I fly ball, deep left field. You're climbing. I think out of all of the Caray broadcasters, my dad mastered this more than anyone. He has been the best at this, the big play calls and all of that stuff. So I learned that from him. But you can hear where he pulls away from Skip here in how he presents his voice, his inflection when big plays happen.
I like that we're discussing all of this as Rafael Belliard is looking at all of us in a judgmental way. Belliard had homered off of Pedro Martinez. He hit 2 career home runs in 17 years. He hit 1 in 87. He hit 1 in 97. He almost took Pedro deep. But, Chris, I want to follow up on something, because I really enjoyed you getting into the difference between a color commentator then and a color commentator now, and the difference between a play-by-play guy then and a play-by-play guy now. How do you think your role is different from your grandfather's role?
Well, considering all of the elements, as we mentioned on television now, it is my job to try and seamlessly transition to those elements and to give the color commentator the opportunity to look as good as possible. And we have a really good one in Oakland. Very talented, very dynamic, super personality-driven guy in Dallas Braden. I think possibly the biggest baseball personality right now. I think back then, when you didn't have all of those elements, it kind of was the play-by-play guy's job to set the scene and finish things off and allow the color commentator to put a bow on it, right? Now it is my job to describe what happens in live time, and then the color commentator does the rest. Make no mistake, the color commentator is the star on television. They're all there to watch Dallas. I mean, they're there to watch the team, but some of them are just solely there to watch Dallas, and you would understand why if you watch frequently why that is. But on radio, I think it's reverse, right? A lot of the time, the play-by-play guy is either by himself, and the number 2 play-by-play or color commentator, however a team decides to operate at the major league level, is just there to drop in little things every once in a while to make sure that everybody knows there is another person there. So that's why I think a lot of play-by-play people, you know, even young men and women that I've met in the minor leagues want to do radio. I always wanted to do TV. My brother always wanted to do TV. We were very TV-driven people. Because we knew the responsibility of making a play big, but we also knew that we wanted to work with great analysts. And on radio, the star are people like us, right? You know, Johnny Dosco, who does a great job with the A's, he's the star. Ken Korak is the star. You know, you go all the way to John Miller across the bay. People are tuning in just to listen to John Miller on the radio, right? So there is a complete difference in how it has changed over time as elements and technology has gotten better. It's favored the ex-player or analyst, as you would call it, in terms of how they speak and how they're presented and how we as the play-by-play people are supposed to make them look.
Are you kidding me? Changeup. He threw him a straight changeup. Why would he do that?
Tried to trick him.
He'd thrown him breaking balls that he couldn't hit and was chasing in the dirt. doing his best to fight off a good fastball. He throws him a changeup right down the middle of the plate, which is really Belliard speed. I mean, about an 85-mile-an-hour changeup from Martinez. That's just right for Rafi, and he almost hit it out of here.
Didn't miss by much at all. It's 3-0 Atlanta. Braves will not hit him 6-zip. Activity now, a right-hander in the bullpen for Montreal. Strength to Maddox.
By the way, I love this angle right behind home plate. You don't see this very often anymore.
Gil Heredia begins throwing for Montreal. A big hit for the little guy. Started to go, held up. A ball and a strike.
If you're throwing pitches to a guy that's having trouble getting around on you, you certainly don't slow your pitches down to give him more of an advantage. Yet that's what Martinez did for Rafael.
Well, I can't. He looked as bad on strike two as any hitter has looked in the history of baseball.
Tell us how you feel, Skip.
But you've got to be thankful for the gifts that are given you, and give Rafi credit for taking advantage of it. There's a pretty good hack, but he fouls it back. It's 1-2. Chicago has come up with a 6-run inning, and they lead Pittsburgh 7-1 in National League play. There's the good cut by Maddox.
He was feeling good enough at the plate tonight in batting practice. He and Glavine were challenging Jarvis Brown and Mike Mordecai to a base hit contest.
Pop foul back. Who won?
Not the pitchers.
Good, then all is right with the world. A ball and 2 strikes. Runner at second, 1 out, 2 in. Another off-speed pitch. Thank you. 2-2. The outfield alignment very similar to Maddox as it was for Belliard. And he corks it into right center field. Walker is there. Belliard tags, but stays right where he is.
Corks it is a great word.
So it's up to Dion if the Braves are going to score any more here in the 5th. They've had 1 man thrown out at the plate, and they've scored 2. Dion has singled and struck out. A base hit to the outfield might plate another run. Boy, a contrast in defensive styles by the center fielders in this game. Sanders plays so deep and Grissom plays so shallow.
The play Marquise Grissom made on Terry Pendleton in the first inning, about as good as you ever want to see from a guy who's showing you that you can challenge him over his head, but he can still go get it.
Right there, 0-1.
And I think he's the best defensive center fielder in the National League, personally.
He's awfully good. With a pretty good arm to boot.
Mm-hmm.
Low and away. It's even now at a ball and a strike. Braves on top, 3-0.
Maddox keeps staying the score when there was no scoreboard.
The stretch and the pitch inside.
One of the things that's been bothering Pedro Martinez of late, he had walked 7 batters in his last 18 innings, but no walks tonight. He's been around the plate, and really this is his only bad inning. He gave up a home run to McGriff to start the 2nd inning, but until now he'd had things pretty much his way.
The 2-1. Let up, fly ball, deep center field. There goes Grissom again to the wall. He's got it, and the inning is over. And he makes it look so easy, and it isn't. But the Braves get 2 runs on 4 hits. Wild inning, no errors, a runner left at the end of 5. Atlanta leads it 3-0.
All right, so just a really fun inning there with Pedro Martinez, Greg Maddux, Larry Walker, Deion Sanders. Actually going to steal something that I read from Joe Posnanski, one of my favorite baseball writers. He made this point when discussing this inning. The idea that you used to have center fielders who just played where they played. Marquise Grissom played shallow, and he would go back on the ball. Deion Sanders played deep, and he came in on the ball. You lose that nowadays because everything is – the computer says this is where you need to play based on where he's likely to hit the ball. And I just thought it was a really interesting observation that Joe Posnanski had. And once again, Skip perfectly foreshadowing this. Now, look, this is also fluke. It happens too. But the idea that he said at the start of the at-bat, the contrast and styles of the center fielders and where they play, and then a couple pitches later, boom, we see Grissom going back and making the catch on the warning track. And I think it's just an elite level of understanding the game and being able to point out things. Sometimes it works out perfect that what happens in the game is exactly what you just previewed. And other times you just made the audience more informed, as I was here, about something that I didn't know about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that comes with decades of experience. However, too, you just sometimes you'll notice little things in one game. You're like, hey, wow, I noticed that that you wouldn't typically say in your quote unquote normal game, right? So, like you said, I think that's more just, as you said, observing the game in a way that maybe 10, 20 people might see. But, he was at one point one of 30 broadcasters. There was a reason that he belonged there, and there was a reason that he analyzed the game the way that he did. That type of analysis, again, has sort of kind of been removed from the play-by-play element because you have, the color commentator talking while the pitch is happening, right? Now, it's a different type of dialogue. So you can hear the color commentator saying, hey, Marquise Grissom type of guy to go back. Deion Sanders is a guy that goes in, and then the pitch happens, and it's the color commentator making that point, and then it happens, right? Versus there was almost a level of etiquette to where the color commentator could and couldn't drop in, and it seemed like after every pitch, okay, that was Joe Simpson's turn. That doesn't exist anymore. It's free form, it's fluid. If Dallas Braden is mid-thought, yeah, he'll drop out for a second if the ball's in play, and then I will finish the play-by-play call, and then he'll go back. Or if it's something big, he'll throw it away. I prefer to be able to have that type of conversation because I think that's an extra added element of the game. One thing that was another thing that I noticed that I haven't noticed with him before is something that my dad, my brother, and I all do. And it's the slide. If you notice, it's a fly ball to center, whatever he says, back goes Grissom, and he will catch it, right? He's early to the call, but the slide is able to create the time in between, right? If he says will and draws it out and he drops it, not catch the ball, will, and then he says not catch the ball, follow it up, or he will make the catch. That also can happen on a pitch. Hey, the 3-2 pitch, and you drag it so that you basically are waiting to see what happens, and that little drag, you don't stop vocalizing, right? So that's something my dad has done. That's something that I do. That's something that my brother does, and it's cool to notice that Skip did that as well because now I know where it comes from because I thought it was just something my dad did.
Do you think that you do that just on your own, or is that just from having listened to your dad so much that it just seeped into your brain?
It's a mixture of both, right? I mean, I think that when people say they listen to me, they say I sound a lot like my dad. And then they listen to my brother and they say he sounds more like your dad because he's got a lower voice. But I think, I picked up on it a little bit, but I also think like the way that I call a game is different than others. I don't do the whole and listening to both of you don't do it either, is like the whole Joe broadcaster, hey, here's the ball at a strike, whatever. There's a lot of people that do that, and that's making you sound like somebody you're not, right? The way that you talk on the air is I kind of do this. It's kind of a weird motion of my voice and how it fluctuates. My brother's is more like his voice, just a little lower. My dad's is kind of like that fluctuation that I learned from as well. So we draw different things, but you kind of find what comes natural, just like anybody finding their home run call. You don't find the home run call kind of finds you. And so, I've picked apart some things I like about his style. There are also things that I might not like about his style, but being able to have that group of people to look back on. I mean, it's amazing to analyze Skip, but because I didn't have as much of a connection with him and Harry, I really look at myself as, I won't say a fourth generation. Like I don't see myself as the fourth generation that everybody, I see myself as a second generation, being Chip's son and Stefan's brother. I've said this on multiple outlets. So that's where I draw my biggest inspiration from.
Makes sense, right? Like for Skip, there's your Harry's son, but also you make your own name. For your dad, you're Skip's son, but also you make your own name. And for you and Stefan, all right, here's who your dad is, and your grandfather and your great-grandfather, but you make your own name.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, once Stefan makes it to the major leagues, they're going to forget about me and my dad pretty quickly. He's going to take it by storm, because he has all of the good qualities of Skip, the ability to use words in a way that are effective and meaningful. And then he also has excellent wordplay. Like he'll text me ideas during my games. I'm like, I've never thought of this. And they're not tacky or anything like that. But he has a deep knowledge of so many different things, just like you were saying about Skip. His usage of a word to describe the police and the ushers and everything like that. That's something my brother is really good at. And then he also has the ability to be off the cuff and funny. And, when I got hired for this job with NBC, that was the biggest separator. When Stefan was the finalist, the runner-up, it was only because he was off the cuff, and we already have a guy like that in the booth. So I was the more straight man. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do. And, our family has been so lucky to be received as well as we have by so many fans in Major League Baseball and the game, that these opportunities, I know we don't take for granted whatsoever. And to be able to look back in the history books and see Skip do what he does, and my dad and Harry, of course, is tremendously special. And it's a real treat for me, guys.
Well, I'm really glad that we picked Skip then, because of what you just said about how you're influenced by your father, obviously. So I'm glad that we made the decision to come up with Skip highlights. Jesse, what are some of your biggest takeaways as we wrap up our appreciation of Skip Caray?
That Coach Prime needs to be asked at his next press conference, hey, you took 22-year-old Pedro to the warning track. Tell me about this. That was such an easy listen. And so what I really enjoyed was in traveling our way through this, and I want to go back to your slide, Chris, because to get back to the original call, and we talked about Cabrera and Cabrera coming home, and how is that celebrated, and how is this moment, and then into Otis Nixon going back to the wall, to the very limits of the ballpark, and then waiting to see if he'd make the catch. I think we got to see so many different facets to your grandfather and the way that he called the game. And I appreciate you taking the time to break this down with us.
No, and I thank you guys. I think, he was an immensely talented individual. His story was a little different. Harry tried to force broadcasting on him. And I think that once, my dad was born, they didn't have a relationship until my dad was in the major leagues. My dad was in St. Louis and Skip was in Atlanta, and they did not see each other until, my dad went to college at Georgia. And then even then it was different. My dad didn't know he wanted to do it until he was about 18 or 19 years old. So I have that parallel with him as well. But of the three Caray broadcasters, I think Skip Caray is colossally underrated. And, Harry, everybody knows Harry, the larger than life personality. But, I think personally, the play-by-play got better with Skip and Chip after Harry. Harry was more of a figure in and of himself, of a cartoon character. And he was good in his early years, but then everything started to happen, and he became this larger-than-life personality where the art, and that sounds so pretentious to say because I don't really talk about the art, but the way that play-by-play is traditionally received as good or bad, what was kind of hard to define with Harry. With Skip And my dad, whether you like their style or not, or mine, like, we can do the play-by-play now because that is the way that the market has demanded of play-by-play people to do. You guys know how it is too. You guys have to be good at your job to be at the levels that you are in. I mean, being in professional baseball and broadcasting, I say we're all on a level playing field. We're just in different spots, right? Like I might be in Oakland, California. You might be in Albuquerque. You might be in Lansing or Midland, Michigan right now, or El Paso, Texas, wherever it is. But we're all kind of doing the same thing. And everybody, from about the minor league levels up are polished and well-versed in certain components of the game. Yeah, there's some things that everybody needs to refine. There's, stuff I need to refine. But I look at it as a level playing field. And I think it's kind of awesome that we get to look at different broadcasters and appreciate the work that they do. But I think it's also important to give you guys your laurels, because I appreciate you guys looking back and giving appreciation to those people while, not getting the appreciation sometimes that you guys deserve, because both of you are incredibly talented people. And it's been fun listening to you guys and getting to know both of you.
All I know is that tonight, at some point, I am going to use the phrase, he's gone as far as he can go, because I just love that phrase. That might be my biggest favorite thing that made me smile in this entire episode. That phrase, he's gone as far as he can go. And then we'll see whether I butcher the call after that point.
I think this conversation has about gone as far as it can go.
Well put.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, guys. You're the best. All right. Take care.
I'm Josh Suchon, and for Jesse Goldberg-Strassler and Chris Caray, thank you for watching this week's edition of Crafting the Call. We'll talk to you again next week.